Konnichiwa. Today we're going to flex our muscles by tackling some real live Japanese, and I'm happy to announce that we're partnering here with another YouTube channel called Akashic Tales, and they specialize in narrative, and I really like their work, so I'm very happy that we're able to work together with this Japanese channel to bring you some real Japanese material that we can break down and apply the principles that we've learned up to now to real situations. So what we're going to listen to today is a Kaidan, a scary story, and it'll take us a couple of lessons to get through it because I want to break down every sentence and look at the various problems as we come to them to put you in a position to be able to do this sort of thing for yourself when you're really listening to real Japanese material. Right, so let's start by hearing the portion of the story that we're going to listen to today, and then we'll tackle it bit by bit.
"それは、ある女の子が先輩のアパートで行われた飲み会に参加した日。飲み会が終了した後、彼女はアパートを出てしばらく歩いていた。ふと、先輩の家に携帯電話を忘れてきたことに気づいた。彼女はアパートに引き返し、先輩の部屋に戻って呼び鈴を押す。ところが、反応がない。ドアノブを回すと、鍵はかかっていなかったので、彼女はそのまま中に入っていった。
Alright, so the first word here is それは, and it's rather like saying in English, it was, and we often begin a story, especially a ghost story, with this kind of expression, don't we? It was a dark and stormy night. So you might start by asking, why is this それは, which means that is or that was, rather than it was? Well, it's a very simple reason. There is no visible word for it in Japanese. The function of what is it in English is always in Japanese performed by the zero pronoun. And it's very important to understand this because it's one of the fundamental keys to understanding Japanese. We do have pronouns in Japanese for me and you and they and she and he, and the zero pronoun is used in the places these would be used in English more often than not. But there is no word at all in Japanese for the simple neutral pronoun it. So in the cases like this where we actually want to make a topic of what would be it in English, we use the slightly more definite pronoun that. So we say that was. Here we're saying it was. Now, we don't know at this stage that it was, and in fact, we never learn that directly. Now, if we want to make sense of this sentence, we can run through it piece by piece. And if we're listening to it without having the words in front of us, we have to do that, and it's not that difficult to do. But I'm going to use a shortcut here because when you have the text in front of you, you can do that. I don't think we should work backwards the way Ruben Sensei suggests, even though I'm a great fan of Ruben Sensei in some ways. But what we can do is take a glimpse at the end because it's going to tell us where this whole rather complicated looking sentence is actually going. So the end of the sentence, and we know that the engine of a sentence always comes at the end, and then it may be followed by a couple of sentence ender particles, but the engine comes at the end apart from that. And what comes at the end of this sentence is hi, day. Now when we see a noun ending a sentence like this, we know that this is going to be an A is B sentence, and that the copula da or des, which belongs there to turn it into a sentence, has been dropped. Now this happens relatively often in casual speech, and this is casual speech. Casual speech is a bit of a catch-all term, but this is the kind of language we'll be using perhaps in a sleepover or something, where we're telling Kaidan, where we're telling creepy tales to each other. And so we're using that level of language where sometimes the copula will get dropped. And we'll see a few other things being dropped in the course of this story. So we have the structure of the sentence here. Sore wa sets the topic. And that's also going to be the subject. So it's sore wa zero ga. And then hi, that's all. It was day. And we don't even know that it was, because we'd need the copula on the end to give us the tense. So if the copula was da, it would end da ta. If it were des, it would end desh ta. As it is, we have no tense marker. But because we know that this is setting the scene for a story, we can tell from that fact that this is an it was type statement, a scene-setting statement. So what about the rest of this sentence? Aru onna no ko ga senpai no apaato de okonawareta nomikai ni sanka shita. Now, as you see, between the sore wa and the hi comes a complete logical sentence in itself. And we can see that each clause in this logical sentence, just as we've seen in our videos on word order and sentence structure, works by successively modifying each element. So, aru onna no ko ga senpai no apaato de okonawareta nomikai ni sanka shita. It's Motivated Radio! So this sentence again, we can break down into its A-car, which is obviously onna no ko ga, and its engine, which is shita, did. And then sanka, shita, sanka, did, took part. And then all the rest of this sentence is successively modifying elements which modify sanka, shita. Senpai no apaato de okonawareta nomikai. So, nomikai is a drinking party, a drinking meeting. Nomi is the E stem, the noun form of nomu, to drink, which is put together with kai, a meeting or party, to give us drinking party, and then everything before that modifies drinking party. Senpai no apaato de okonawareta nomikai, a drinking party held in senpai's apartment. So we have aru onna no ko ga, a certain girl, senpai no apaato de okonawareta nomikai ni, and this gives us the place where she went to take part. It was a drinking party held in senpai's apartment. So we have that whole logical clause. A certain girl took part in a drinking party held at senpai's apartment, and all of that is a modifier for day. So sore wa, it was the day when a certain girl attended a drinking party held in senpai's apartment. So you see, this isn't constructed the way we generally expect English to be constructed, but that's fine, because we have some experience now about how Japanese is constructed, and I think we'll agree this all makes good sense. So that is setting the scene. It's telling us the day when this happened, and it's filling in details about that day which are going to be relevant as we move into the story. Well, that took rather longer than I expected, or a single sentence, but I think it's worth going into it in detail, don't you? So I'm afraid we'll have to leave this on a bit of a shorter cliffhanger than I had originally anticipated, but the next few sentences I think will contain less questions, so we should be able to proceed through the text a little bit more quickly next time. I would also like to apologize for the fact that I looked half asleep quite a lot of the time in this video. I wasn't half asleep. In fact, I don't go half asleep. When I'm on my charging bed, I'm completely inactive, and so long as I've got charge, I'm 100% functional, more or less. What happened was that I was looking at the text rather than the camera rather too much of the time. So if you have any questions or comments, please put those in the comments below, and I will answer as usual. I'd like to thank my gold Kokeshi patrons who make these videos possible, and all my patrons and supporters who also make these videos possible on Patreon and everywhere, and I'd like to thank you for attending this lesson. これからもよろしくお願いします. Class dismissed.